Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on KPAX, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, I'm Dennis Bragg.
And I'm Jill Valley. The skeletal remains of 3 children left in a box in a shed in Missoula have police investigating a mystery. Who were these children? How did they die? And how long ago did this happen?
A cleaning crew discovered the remains back in September. Missoula police tell us now they have a person of interest they'd like to talk to, but emphasize this person is not a suspect.
A search warrant obtained by MTN News show police were called to a home on the 2100 block of South 12th Street West in late September to investigate the find.
Loose teeth. There was what appeared to be bone from a lower jaw, and others that were not as specifically described, but I would call them pieces of bone. There was also rocks in this box.
A professor from the University of Montana Anthropology Department confirmed the remains are of 3 children. One is between 6 and 10 years old, the other 5 to 8 years old, and yet another 2 to 4 years old at the time of their deaths. A box containing the remains discovered by a cleaning crew that was contracted to clean up the rental property after the tenant was evicted the week before in late September. After a search warrant was obtained, the follow-up investigation revealed no evidence that a crime occurred there. The children's identities and the cause and manner of their death is now under investigation. Police officials say they're working with the Montana State Crime Lab and other agencies.
We are working with the National Center for Missing and Endangered Children and other missing person databases to see if that's a possibility. And we don't know that this particular case is isolated to the city of Missoula. We don't know where the bones came from, or if maybe they were transported from one area to another and ended up here.
Now, at this point, only a very broad time frame is available to describe how old the bones are. The anthropology department members at University of Montana say they are ancient and are likely modern. There are no suspects currently as police continue to investigate who these kids were and what led to their deaths. Well, the inversion started to lift a bit today and more changes are on the way for the weekend. For the latest, let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Aaron Yost. Aaron?
Yeah, today a taste of what's to come. We finally saw some action, a disturbance making its way across the northern Rockies. That did leave a little light snow for some of our valleys today. As you can see in Hamilton earlier, our First Security Bank ICAM, that system has come and gone. We have seen clouds kind of clear out just a bit throughout the afternoon and this evening, but that fog and those inversions will redevelop overnight tonight into your Thursday as high pressure remains in the region. It will, though, start to be shoved off towards the southeast here as we head into the latter part of this work week and definitely by the weekend as some systems finally arrive. We've got more details coming up.
While much of the debate over grizzly bear recovery is focused on Yellowstone and the Northern Continental Divide, state and federal agencies continue to discuss bears returning to the Bitterroot Range along the Montana-Idaho border. And while there are no active reintroduction plans, it appears the growing bear populations in the Northern Rockies are moving that direction anyway. It's country just made for grizzlies. The Bitterroot Range extends for more than 400 miles along the Idaho-Montana border, encompassing the Rocky Peaks of the Bitterroot Mountains themselves and ending in the windswept high country of the Beaverheads and Centennial Ranges to the south. It's some of the emptiest territory in the Northern Rockies, but generally considered grizzly-free. However, that could be changing.
There certainly have been some sightings or some evidence of grizzly bears in the Big Hole area, which is exciting because that means that they are definitely moving into that area.
Nelson briefed members of the Interagency Grizzly Bear Committee during its annual meeting this week in Missoula. She told her colleagues efforts are still underway to verify those random sightings, but the approach remains that grizzlies must immigrate on their own into the Bitterroot. They won't be moved there.
There are no plans to reintroduce them into that area. What we're hoping is that we're just going to start to see more and more evidence. And so that really is where the subcommittee is headed with their research and planned actions.
The focus is to use remote cameras, including some already placed to track fisher populations, to secure proof grizzlies are back in the Bitterroot and the Selway and Frank Church wilderness areas.
We're looking at the sapphires and the Fish Creek units in particular that we're hoping to gain that. We've deployed 120 remote cameras in the North Fork of the Loxaw on the Claire Nez.
Researchers also hope to focus on the I-90 corridor, which bears must cross if they are to connect between the Northern Divide and Yellowstone.
Again, those areas that we're looking to take planned action on are the lower Clark Fork and also the 9 Mile area. which are really pretty high probability of bears moving into those areas.
And Nelson says regardless of how long it takes for grizzlies to come back to the Bitterroot, wildlife managers are anxious to start with education now, getting a jump on some of the human-bear conflicts we've seen elsewhere.
When we're starting to see the population move in, we've got to start educating people on what this means, what this is all going to entail.
National Forest managers are also taking grizzly movement into account as they develop their new forest travel plans.
The debate over mountain bikes in the wilderness moves to a whole new level today as a House committee passes a measure eliminating a 40-year-old ban on mechanical conveyances. Mountain bikes weren't specifically excluded in the 1964 Wilderness Act, but the Forest Service started closing some trails as early as 1977. Outright bans took effect in the late 80s as the popularity of backcountry bikes exploded. Today, the House Natural Resources Committee approved a bill that would restore the option for federal land managers to allow not just bikes but adaptive cycles, strollers, and game carts in wilderness at their discretion. The vote, though, is splitting backcountry users. The Montana Wilderness Association says it could interfere with efforts to find a consensus over public land management. While some biking groups support it, the International Mountain Biking Association is actually against it. Montana Representative Greg Gianforte voted for the bill, which moves out of committee, but a full House vote has not yet been scheduled. Missoula County officials say they've been able to secure federal help for Seeley Lake businesses who were hit hard by last summer's Rice Ridge fire. That fire that burned more than 150,000 acres effectively shut down Seeley Lake for the second half of the summer tourist season. Not only did the town have to cope with long evacuations, but that record-breaking smoke was choking the town and scaring visitors away. Well, now Missoula County says the U.S. Small Business Administration is coming through with SBA disaster loans. It's to help businesses recoup some of their losses. The loans provide working capital to businesses who qualify with a fixed interest rate of 4% and maximum loans up to $2 million. In addition to Missoula County, businesses in surrounding counties may also be eligible. Information on those loans are available by calling the SBA, the number 1-800-659-2955.
It's not as cold as it was last December, but the need is just as great to help the homeless population in and around Missoula. And once again this year, the group David's Angels has been busy for weeks collecting warm coats, hats, gloves, boots, sleeping bags, and other items to help the homeless weather a western Montana winter. This year, the distribution is being moved to the Union Gospel Mission Day Center on Toole Avenue so volunteers can be indoors. And they're still collecting donations for Friday's distribution. Men's sizes especially needed. You can arrange a pickup by calling Judy Sass at 550-1021, 550-1021. The holiday season is a time of joy, but for families whose children are fighting serious illness, it's difficult to feel the spirit of the season.
Those behind the Jaden Fred Foundation are doing what they can to help ease that burden and provide a happy holiday to those who need it most. MTN's Eric Clements reports.
Britt Fred and his family have made it their mission to ease the burden on Montanans whose children are sick. They do this in memory of Britt's daughter, Jaden, who fell victim to pancreatic blastoma just before her 7th birthday. Jaden's memory lives on, immortalized through the Jaden Fred Foundation.
When Jaden passed away, we felt like we needed to take this experience and do something with it that could benefit other families. This just allows us to be the conduit between maybe experiencing some joy in the midst of trial.
The foundation is helping spread holiday cheer, providing countless gifts to dozens of Montana families, each one sponsored by a business. For 8 years now, these gifts have lifted the spirits of children battling illness and eased the burden on parents doing everything they can to protect their kids.
It's just very overwhelming when your child has some challenges that they're facing, and so when you find a foundation that's so giving and loving and just willing to help you, it's just a huge blessing.
Mariah Cochran's son Gavin is one of more than 30 kids honored. He got to open a present given to him by Santa himself. Gavin was born profoundly deaf. Later, he developed patches of rough red skin.
And they did genetic testing, and he has a really rare syndrome called keratitis ichthyosis deafness syndrome.
But Gavin isn't hindered by his disorder. He's a curious, energetic boy who is eager to learn as much as he can with the help of a pair of cochlear implants.
He's learning sign language, and he's just really flourishing, so it's really amazing.
In Missoula, Eric Clements, MTN News.
The Jade and Fred Foundation offers financial support to families in need of high-level medical care for their children, including some cancer treatments not covered by insurance. A thank you to our generous viewers. We have almost gathered 5,000 pounds of food in the KPAX First Security Bank Holiday Food Drive. We have a lot more time to help our hungry neighbors. Drop off any non-perishable food items or cash donation to any First Security Bank locations. You can find a list of all those banks at KPAX.com, and all of this stays right here in western Montana to help our neighbors.
I ran out to get something for the car, and I noticed it is getting slick out there. It really is. And
yeah.
Aaron says we could have some slick roads overnight. More on the weather changes coming for the weekend next.
And we'll meet a man who was showing one Missoula neighborhood that Christmas perhaps doesn't come from a store. Christmas perhaps means a little bit more.